What's up, everybody? It's been a minute. This Friday night, it's that time. Snow Rock Live. We on a good one tonight. You know what I mean? It's been a good day. It's been a good week. Your boy been working hard. You know what I mean? Trying to chase that bag. But life is good, man. You know what I'm saying? Got the grandbaby at home. Life is good. But that's the thing. It's just work, work, work. And now, you know what I'm saying, it's the weekend, so I get to play. So it's fun time now. But it's Friday night, so we live, you know what I'm saying, so we trying to see what's going on. It's early. How many people we got up in here? We got a couple, literally. uh, what's up, everybody? So your boy been trying to get things together. I'm working on a book. I got a full time job that's kicking me in the ass right now. It's just work's picked up, so that's a good thing. That's a good thing because it was rough for a while. I've been going through all kinds of stuff. I'm just trying to be a better me than I was yesterday. That's my goal every day. That's my daily goal is to be better than I was the day before. And I just keep pushing forward and look, I'm still here. This is the best I've ever been doing. I don't know how to say it any other way, but I'm blessed by the best and praying for the rest. Because when I was out ripping and running, somebody was praying for me. I'm lucky. I have family that was still out there, praying for me to figure it out. And you know what I'm saying, that's the thing. I got out the cage and I decided I'm tired of living like this. I gotta do something different. So if you want something different, you gotta do something different. So, I went and got a job, you know what I'm saying, got into a sober living facility. I didn't have no place to go. I didn't have no family left. I'm paroling from a California prison from the hole. Yeah, I did my last 8 months in the hole, and then I get released, and I ain't got no family left. I ain't got no place to go. I ain't got nothing. You know what I mean? I get to the parole office, and they tell me they don't have nothing available for me. They can set me up at a spot called the Coast Hotel, and that's like downtown, right in the heart of the crack district. It's a setup. Why would you know what I'm saying, put the place right there? But you know what I'm saying, that's the way they do it because they want you to come back. It's about the system. As long as you come back, they got a job. When you stop coming back, then you know what I'm saying, they don't have no work. And they stay working. Man, what I'm saying? Hey, high priced babysitters, you know what I'm saying? I ain't mad at them. You know what I mean? Some of them just up in there trying to collect a check. You got other ones that's, they ooh wee. Some of them, I think some of the correctional officers are the guys that got bullied and picked on and picked on, got they lunch money took. And now they be trying to take it out because they have a little power and a little control over people, and they use that and they try and abuse that. That's when it's bad. Now don't get me wrong, you know what I'm saying? I don't believe all pigs are bad. You know what I'm saying? 99% of them. But I'm talking about correctional officers. So correctional officers, police, you know what I'm saying, whatever. But correctional officers, most of them just up in there to get a check, provide for their family. Some of them, they up in there trying to get revenge on the ass whoopings and all the wedgies and all that they got. And now they up in there, you know what I'm saying, taking it out. And I'm talking about, I've been places where correctional officers was setting up fights. I was in Corcoran in the early 90s. And if anybody knows anything about Corcoran, they had the police would set up fights and they would bet on the outcomes. And you know, if you don't like the outcome, then you know, guy, the guys would shoot inmates because they lost the bet. It's sad, but it's true. And people, you know what I'm saying, people don't even know half the stuff that went on behind those walls, you know, because it can get bad real fast, you know. And I swear that shit went on for years until finally one correctional officer said, "Nah, that's wrong," and he said something. That's the only way. Inmates were saying something all the time. Inmates were crying, begging, everything they could. Inmates were dying. That's what was going on. Inmates were dying. And it was, you know what I'm saying, it was bad. It was bad. I was there and I experienced some of it. I took the worst beating I've ever taken, you know, at the hands of correctional officers, you know, and look, I don't know what they beat me with, but they beat me from my shoulders to my feet. They didn't hit me in my face or in my head, but from my shoulders to my feet, they beat me. And I'm talking about literally, I had purple and blue bruises all up and down my body. I laid on the floor for a day and a half before I even got up off the floor and got onto the bed. And that's only because, you know what I'm saying, you know, I was cold. You know, and everything hurt. I'm talking about, you know, I passed out and a correctional officer was stomping on my family jewels. You know, it was the worst beating I ever had in my life. You know, I survived though, and I figure, you know, somebody kept me here, and I figure, you know what I'm saying, the man upstairs kept me here, and I'm still here. That means he got a plan for me. I'm not always sure what it is. I try and ask, you know what I'm saying, you know, for guidance. Show me what you want me to do and give me the strength to get it done. And since I've been doing that, life has been getting better. I got to keep focused. I got to keep pushing forward. I got to keep trying to make me better than I was. And so today, I'm just trying to be better than I was yesterday. That's it. And so that's how I get through. That's how I get from day to day. And I got a lot to look forward to. You know, when I get off work, you know, I got a beautiful wife, a beautiful family. You know, I'm I'm so blessed. You know, and I realize it. I know a lot of people. You know, what I'm saying, you know, take this shit for granted. And it was crazy because at first I didn't realize it. I was, you know what I'm saying, you know, focused, looking looking over the hedge at everybody else's, you know what I'm saying, grass. Not realizing, you know what I'm saying, when you take a step back and look at what you got, you know, man, look, I got it good. I got it good. But that's because, you know, I got a good partner, you know what I'm saying? You know, we've been pushing forward together, you know, and she helps me to be a better me. And I still need help. I'm still working on it. It's a work in progress. I don't, you know, I don't say, "Oh, I'm fixed." I'm broken. I'm messed up. I got issues like tissues. I got I got the best life. I got a good life. It keeps getting better. You know, I go to work. I go to work and work hard. But you know what I'm saying. You know, I have a good life, and it keeps getting better. Like I said, I keep working. I keep doing what I'm supposed to do, and you know what I'm saying. You know, life keeps blessing me. I don't know. You know what I'm saying. You know what? I don't know. What more do I want? I want to own my own home. I want to, you know what I'm saying, you know, be able to retire one day. I want to travel. I want to see the country. I got all kinds of wants. But you know what I'm saying, right now, where I'm at right now is, you know what I'm saying, you know, I gotta build. so that, you know what I'm saying, my seeds have something, you know, that I can hand down so that their life gets a little bit easier. Hopefully. I don't know, you know what I'm saying? The future is in the future. I'm right here. I deal with the present. I deal with right now. And that's what I deal with. And you know what I'm saying? Until we get to the future, I'll be here in the present, pushing forward. Can't stop, won't stop. Ain't no going backwards. I'm that little engine that could. I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. And everybody knows, you know what I'm saying? If you take a train off the tracks, he ain't going nowhere. So that's the thing. I've been, you know what I'm saying? I've been on my tracks and pushing, and it keeps working. Life keeps getting better. So I'm gonna keep pushing with it. But I got one I wanted to talk about. There was this dude I did time with when I first went to prison. This dude had 7 to life. Now he got sentenced to 7 to life, and this was the old law. This was before my time, so I came in. He had already been down for like 8 years, and that was when I first met him. So he was a wild one, you know what I'm saying? He was telling me all the stories, you know what I'm saying? He was active. He was putting in work and handling his business and getting into shit. So he had been down 8 years when I saw him, and then I left. I got out. I did 4 years on my first term, and I got out, and I stayed out for 7 months. I stayed out for 7 months. I did 3 years. I stayed out for 7 months, and then I came back, and I got sentenced to 9 years with 80%. So this was my second strike under the three strikes law when it first came out in 1994. So I didn't understand how it worked, but the cops, the police, they wanted me to help them out, and I told them, and they told me that they was going to hang me out to dry. So the only deal they offered me was 11 years with 80%. So now I went all the way to trial, got found guilty, and then got sentenced to less than the deal. Because the judge says, I'm going to give you 3 years. Because it's your second strike, we're going to double this to 6, and then we're going to add 3 more for great bodily injury. I broke a guy's jaw in 3 places, knocked out 2 teeth, and severed a nerve in his mouth. The other guy, he had his cheekbone broke. And I don't brag, but you know what I'm saying? I grew up getting picked on. So I had to learn how to fight. And I learned, I learned, don't get me wrong, I don't like to fight, but I'm not scared of fight. And hopefully I don't have to fight no more. But if I do, whoever is is my opponent is in trouble. I'm just saying. Corey, what's up? You whooped both of them? Man, it was 3 of them. The third one hit me. It was crazy because we was coming back from a club. I'm walking with some females. I'm trying to, what I'm saying, put my bid in and see if I, what I'm saying, make something happen. So we come back from the club. I'm walking with three females, and the white Navy dude called me a N lover because they were black girls. So now, I'm fresh out the pen. I'm 235. It's 3 of them. But they're, what I'm saying, they're Navy dudes. They've been drinking. So I'm taking advantage of them. They ain't got no win against me. I'm fresh out of prison. I've been on the weights. I'm healthy. I'm so bing, bing, bing. it was quick, and I didn't try to break the dude's jaw. I was just trying to show off in front of the females. If anybody, I'm saying, if anybody knows how it goes, you know how, a man is all, well, I think I learned from the animal kingdom. At my job, we had some wild peacocks, and now, I'm saying, there's only one left. They trapped seven of the nine. Two of them been there for years after they trapped the other ones and took them away, and so they've been there for years. I'm talking about like 6 years, and now there's only one left, and he's all by himself. And so I noticed that the male peacock, is the only one with the feathers and the colors, because the male has to attract a female. That's his goal. That's his only, you know. And I've seen the peacock, in my yard, doing his mating ritual every year. And I'm saying, I swear his call is like, ha ha, ha ha, ha ha. And to me, all it is him laughing at me. Ha ha, ha ha, ha ha. It's crazy because when we first got to the property, me and another guy caught the peacock, one of the two that they couldn't catch. So when we caught that one, it was okay, I'm saying, now, I'm saying, what are we going to do with it? But we had been told that the people across the street had told a guy, that somebody would give $200 for the peacock. So I go over there to negotiate. My boy is holding the bird. And I'm talking about this peacock, they got claws, like, I'm saying, he didn't put up a fuss, he didn't panic or go crazy or none of that. When we first grabbed him, I'm saying, he tried to get away, but we grabbed him and swooped him up. And it was quick. My boy put his arm around him, and now the bird can't do nothing. He's holding the legs and holding the neck. And, I'm saying, had his arm around the body so he didn't hurt him. And we held him, and he held him, and I went across the street to negotiate for the $200. They got 200. We gonna get 100 apiece. But the people will hold. They like, whoa, 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 no. So we said somebody would pay 200. I said, okay, well, give us 100, and you can make 100. They like, nah. They said, I'm saying, we'll give him a good home. I'm like, shit, I'll let that. We'll let him go before that go. Anyway, I'm all off track. What I'm saying is the male is always the one who has to show off, to prove he's man enough for the woman to accept his advances. And so that's all I was trying to do. I was trying to show off in front of the female so she would accept my advances. But that, I'm saying, the dude, I'm saying, said something and the fight broke out. And, I'm saying, when the fight was over, I'm trying to get through the customs building. We're in Tijuana. This was on the bridge that you walk across, and then you go, when you get on the other side, you got to cross the street. When you cross the street, there's a line on the ground. I noticed now, I didn't notice then, because you could see it from the aerial photos that they had in court. Because they had aerial photos of the whole area showing where the fight happened, where they said it happened, because they had to prove, they had to convince, they didn't prove, they had to convince the jury that the fight happened on this side of the line. But really it happened on the other side because we were on the bridge coming down when the fight happened. And that's when it all, kicked off. Then when we came down the other side, it got big. A bunch of people were involved. And then I was just trying to get over to the U.S. side. I didn't want to get caught by the federales in Tijuana. I had heard too many of those stories about people getting caught and going to the Tijuana jail. I did not want to experience that. Now I can fight, but you know what I'm saying, when you're up against numbers like that, you know what I'm saying, you ain't got no win. You ain't got no win because everybody's gonna jump in and they gonna dance all over your head. Ah, what it do? What it do? Lazy tapping in. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. Man, look, it's been a good week. Everything, you know what I'm saying, grandbaby growing, life going, you know what I'm saying? Life keeps getting better, man. And I know, you know what I'm saying, it's hard. I don't know, you know what I'm saying, I don't know what's coming. I'm man, you know what I'm saying, all this shit that's going on. I don't know what to believe anymore. I'm just trying to, you know what I'm saying, trying to take care of the fam bam. As long as you don't bring it inside this gate, I'm good, keep it outside the gate. But yeah, you know what I'm saying, I kind of, you know what I'm saying, live my life kind of like from when I was in prison, I learned how to program. And we call it programming because, you know, counting the blessings over the stressings. Keep pushing. It's no right. Man, can't stop, won't stop. You already know. But yeah, you know what I'm saying? It was rough sometimes, and just keep pushing forward. And this is the best life I've ever lived. I can't speak for nobody else, but I don't have everything I want, but I have everything I need. And that's the thing, you know what I'm saying? I've lived with so much less. And like inside, I trained myself to go to work every day. It wasn't something I did. It wasn't something I was used to. I'm a hustler, so I'm gonna go grind. You know what I mean? I'm trying to lay somebody down. I'm trying to find somebody, you know what I'm saying, and take what they got, and I knew the dope man, you know what I'm saying, he had the bag. That's the bag I wanted because his was bigger. I wasn't going after average Joes. Yeah. So my routine, you know what I'm saying, I just brought it out here. I go to work and then I come home. And then my wife, the wifey, she didn't like when I would call the house my cell. And it's like she didn't understand at first because this is my cell, but this is the most comfortable, best cell I've ever lived in. Like I said, you know what I'm saying, this is the best I've ever been doing. And I ain't got it all. You know what I'm saying, I got the lowrider out front, but it needs work. I can't, you know what I'm saying, do nothing with it, you know what I'm saying, because it needs work and funds, you know what I'm saying, money's funny and credit won't get it. And that's the thing, I can't go and flip a bag real quick. I gotta go to the job and you know what I'm saying, and get it the legit way. So, I done started a YouTube channel. Hey, this is another, you know what I'm saying, another, you know what I'm saying, reach for the bag. But that's just the hustle in me, and that's that can't stop, won't stop. And anybody that do know, I ain't fisting to go without. I don't give a damn, you know what I'm saying, where you at, what you got, you know what I mean? You drop me off, you know what I'm saying, butt naked in Alaska, I'm gonna come back 10 pounds heavier with a bearskin coat on. And you know what I'm saying, I'm a survivor, so I'm going to get it. And it used to be by hook or by crook, because if I caught you slipping, that was mine. You know, point seen, money gone. And it was real life, you know what I'm saying? If you had a problem, catch me in traffic. Cause I'm not hard to find, that's one thing. I always stood out. I stood out in the crowd. And it wasn't no, you know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, no one noticed. Oh yeah, I'm the only white boy in who the hell is that? Who the so it's a it's an issue. Yeah, so the dude, back to the dude. This dude, he had seven to life. So he had been down 8 years when I first met him. I did 4 years and got out. Came back like a year, less than a year later. I stayed out 7 months and I came back. And then they sentenced me to 9 years with 80%. And I ended up doing 12 years and 7 months on the 9 with 80. You might say, how the hell does that? How do you do 12 years on 9 years? Well, anybody that knows, when you go to prison, you ain't guaranteed that date that they give you. Now, if you do all good, don't get in no trouble, no rule violations, no extra days, and you do all your work, that's the thing. Because if you don't work, then you don't get your halftime credits. And that's the thing. Oh, now you're not getting, you know what I'm saying, day for day. You're getting 1/3, and it's messed up, but you know what I'm saying, it's just basic modern day slavery. That's how they keep the prisons going, because we're the ones doing the work. We're the ones cleaning the prison. We're the ones plumbing the prisons. We're the ones, you know what I'm saying, doing the electrical. We're the ones, there's one free staff standing there telling y'all what to do, while, you know what I'm saying, he sits back smoking cigarettes. And the whole time, you guys, the inmates, do all the work. Then he takes you back to wherever you need to go, drops you off so that you can be processed back into your cell. But you're going to go to work, you know. And that's the thing. If you didn't want to go to work, that's cool. But, oh, you didn't want to go to work, so now we lost privileges. So now that package that you usually get, you can't get that. So now when you go to the canteen, you can't spend as much money. You can only spend, say, I think it's $35, and I can spend 140. What? That don't make sense, huh? You can only spend 1/4 of what it is if you're on loss of privileges. So you can't get a package. You're going to get a package every 3 months. And that's your family or somebody, I'm saying, sending you a package from the streets. And that's, these things are needed up in there when you ain't got nothing and you ain't got nobody to send you nothing. It's difficult. It's not impossible, because I did it. I didn't have nobody send me nothing, and I learned how to hustle up, and get what I needed, because I wasn't fisting to go without. So I started out selling coffee. And I don't drink coffee. So what's the first rule? Don't get high off your own supply. So I don't drink coffee, so I can sell coffee. So that was one of my hustles. And I turned that into a cool, it started out, $25 every month. And that was just 10 bags of Maxwell House coffee. Each bag, I give you one bag. Next month, you give me back 2 bags. So then when I get the 2 bags back, I bring 10 bags back, and I put $25 in my shelf. So I got food and whatever else I need, cosmetics, soap, deodorant, toothpaste, whatever, I was needing at that time, because I had all my stuff. Like I say, I'm a hustler. So when you in a situation like that, I personally had, excesses of the basics, my soaps and deodorants and toothpaste. I had a stack so that, I wouldn't run out, because there were situations in prison where we were on lockdown, for like 6 months. And if you didn't get a package, there's no canteen. So that's all you get. And then that's, once every 3 months. So it was ugly, and that was to try and break the inmates. And that was at corporate, because, every time we came off lockdown, it was going up again. And so the police got tired of it. So they slammed us and they shut everything down for like 6 months. I think it was 5.5 months, 5 months, 2 weeks. And that was the longest I've been on lockdown outside of the shoe program. And that was, that was bad, because everybody was out of everything. It's you got a few guys that's ballers that, that don't have to worry, always have shit. I wasn't that guy. I'm a hustler. So I was, I was living from, and I was out of everything. It was, it was grimy. But, I made it through, and I'm still here, and I figure, again, somebody kept me. And you know what I'm saying, I'm thankful. Man. So now I program myself in prison, and I call it, programming, because now I'm out here doing the same thing. I go to work and then I come back and I hang out on the yard for a little while, and it's back to the cage. And I'm in my cell. And it's my house is my cell. And there's a few people been to the back cave. They know, it ain't all that, but this is the best I've ever had it. And I figure, man upstairs, he's blessing me every time I turn around. So I'm gonna keep on doing what I'm doing and keep pushing for that bag. Can't stop, won't stop. But that's the thing. I put a little video out called Code of Ethics. If you ain't seen it, go check it out. It's just a 1 minute long, 60 less than 60 seconds. Go check that one out. There's a shirt. I don't know who got the shirt, but I need one of those, man. Somebody got one of the homies. I don't know who it is. You know what I'm saying? One of the homies got that shirt. I need one of those, man. Where you at, man? Look out for your partner, man. I know. Whoever it is, man, holla at your boy. I ain't hard to find. We can work something out. But the code of ethics, what I mean? A lot of people, need to understand that social media, everything ain't for social media. Everything ain't to be out. I'm not one of these guys out here, putting everything on blast. That's not my get down. I be scared. I be scared when I speak because I don't want to say anything to get somebody or myself caught up in a twist. Because I know, Mr. Charlie listening right now. That's okay. Hopefully leave a thumbs up. Hit that like, hit the subscribe, look out for your boy at one time. But yeah, I'm gonna keep pushing out this content. I'm gonna keep, telling y'all the real deal. I'm out here living the best life. But it's hard. A lot of people, a lot of people are struggling. I struggles, but it's never time to stay down. No matter how many times you get knocked down, you got to keep getting back up. And I have been knocked down more times than I can remember. But I'm still here and I'm still going and ain't no stopping me. So, the sky's the limit. When I was a kid, all I wanted was a name and a reputation. And if anybody knows, Snow Rock is a motherfucking legend. Ask somebody, anybody that's been to prison in California, oh yeah, they done heard about Snow Rock. Ain't but one white boy Crip that walked from level 1 to level 2 to level 3 to level 4, back down to level 3, and then walked out the motherfucking door and still standing tall. But out here living my best life. I got out here, and got into a program because I wanted something different. I was tired of doing the same things. If motherfucker wants something different, you can make it happen. How do I know? I made it happen. I created this? No. I was blessed with this by my father. Because, look, man, I've been to the bottom. I've been on the bottom. And it's no place but up from here. It's been, I don't know. It's uh okay. So when I came up at 13 years old, pops put me on the streets. I didn't have no place to live. I ended up, in the canyon and from house to house, garage, stayed a night here, couple nights here, whatever, wherever I could stay until the homeboy was like, hey, man, you can stay here. You just got to sell this for me. But that was at 13 years old, and by the time I was 14 years old, I had my own apartment, selling my own sack. Now the homie, he taught me, he laced me up. He didn't just use me. He could have, you know what I'm saying, just had me selling this shit and didn't give me nothing. You know what I mean? But he laced me with game. And that was, you know what I'm saying, that was good because he taught me a lot, and a lot of that stuff I used and it got me to where I am. Like I say, I'm a hustler. So I just converted my hustle to all legit because that's the only thing that works for me every time. You know what I'm saying? I done done all kinds of hustles. I'm talking about breaking into cars, robbing houses, kicking in doors, to robbing the dope man, to, to sticking up a taxi cab, to crazy shit, to, beating the shit out of somebody, and taking everything they got. We used to just we would just see people and it'd be like a challenge. Let's go see if we could just knock these two people out. It's two of us, you know what I'm saying? I remember it was me and Emrod. Me and Emrod. So me and Emrod, I was following. Now he was the leader. And you know what I'm saying, I was following. You know what I mean? I was a youngster and you know what I'm saying, I was following, but I had a good homie, you know what I'm saying, and we came up together. So it was, you know what I'm saying, it was show off time and we was out here, you know what I'm saying, acting a fool. So we just, you know what I'm saying, just walk up to two dudes, just take off. He's like, look, just do whatever I do. So we walk up, he's like, hey man, you know what I'm saying, you got some change? And the dude looked at him funny and he just cracked him and knocked him out and started going in his pockets. And the other dude's just standing there looking. So I try and get him, but he's trying to run away. So now I'm trying to chase him and beat on him to get him to stop running because I'm trying to get in his pockets. But that's the thing. It was crazy. We was wilding out, acting a fool. And we didn't know no better. We thought, you know what I'm saying, we thought we could do whatever we wanted to do. We had to learn that, you know, everything has a cost. Ain't nothing for free. Ain't no free rides. And every time you get one, you can expect there to be, saying, something in the fine print, something on the back end waiting for you. So don't fall for the banana and the tailpipe trick. And that's the thing, man. I swear, you know what I'm saying, I don't know, you know what I'm saying, how to get a hold of these youngsters, get in their ear. But you know what I'm saying, I wish they would listen. Look, I'll give it to you, all you can handle. Hit me, holla, little homie, anybody. You know what I mean? Man, holla, because you know what I'm saying. That bullshit ain't about nothing. Tell me what you want, I'll tell you how to get it. For real, for real. I ain't gonna, you know what I'm saying, lead you, you know what I'm saying, into that cage. That cage is all bad. I spent too much time stuck in a box trying to get some air, trying to get somewhere, trying to get something. And I spent over 20 years. I spent over 20 years in a California cage. That's crazy, Just thinking about it, because yeah, if I could go back, I wouldn't do that again. Mike, yo, I feel you, Snow Rock. Yeah, the '80s was different. Hey, the '80s was different. People don't understand. It was. I said Generation X because we was man. Look, we was everywhere. I remember, being. I seen a post, and it was like if you wanted to know where all the kids was at in the neighborhood, it was one house with all the bikes piled up on the front yard, and that's where everybody was at. And it was really like that back in the day. We used, I remember my homies, you know what I'm saying, I remember, so we used to have to go steal bikes. We couldn't afford the good bikes, so we had to go steal them. And you know what I'm saying? Somebody coming up short. Yeah, the 80s was wild. So it was lit. Oh, BMX skateboards, yeah, that's the thing, man. You know what I'm saying? Look, I used to, man, look, I stole this one, the easiest bike I ever stole. I stole this bike from Chuck E. Cheese. Somebody else had stole it and parked it where the trash cans are in the back. And I heard them talking about it. So I went back there to see if it was really there, and the bike was there. And it was a little Diamondback. So this was a new thing for the Diamondbacks. If anybody knows what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. But you know what I'm saying? It had a little diamond. So it had a laid back seat post. It had the everything, you know what I'm saying? But it was all Diamondback. So, now I rode a mongoose. I rode double with my homeboy on the handlebars. This is my mongoose. But my mongoose is cheap. My mongoose is cheap. You know what I mean? I got the blue snake belly tires. I got the blue Oakley grips. I got the blue GT gooseneck. I got the blue alloy C clamp. I got the blue seat. You know what I mean? You know what it is. Yeah. So them was the days, man. You know what I'm saying? And we used to be everywhere on them damn bikes, man. I remember, you know what I'm saying? We literally we would be everywhere. GT, Mongoose, Haro, yeah. Ah, man, everybody had that one. I remember my boy, you know what I'm saying? He had the PK Ripper. That thing was sick, you know what I mean? Yeah, we called it the Cripper. Oh man, that's crazy. I remember the mag wheels. I remember, you know what I'm saying, somebody had like some alloy or aluminum mag wheels. It was crazy because, you know what I'm saying, I know that person. I know that person that rode home on flat. On the mag wheels, they made it, but he ruined them. Then they had the other ones, you know what I'm saying, that was if they would get warped and you would put them in the freezer, you'd have to have a big, like a deep freezer. But if you put the rim in the freezer, it would straighten out. Because it gets so cold, it would straighten out. I don't know how I did it. Yeah, them man, look, and we had parts and parts just piled up. Man, the good old days, man, it was so much easier back then. Now, you know what I'm saying? I was looking at one of those e-bikes, man. That's, you know what I'm saying, that's a down payment. You can go buy a car for that. For the price of one e-bike, and this is a cheap one, you know what I'm saying? It was $1,000. You give me $1,000, I can go to the damn, you know what I'm saying, auction and get a bucket and be rolling. Uh Dino spokes. You could do that with. Yeah. you know. But that's the thing, I remember it was so much. We had canyons to play in and all kinds of stuff. Now I was just noticing how everything is built up. And right now they're building more and so fast with all these, you know what I'm saying, add on a house behind your house. And, everybody's, you know what I'm saying, trying to level up. I am not mad at them. I'm, you know what I'm saying, I'm behind. I'm trying to catch up. I'm trying to get in a position where I can, you know what I'm saying, own a piece of dirt. I don't need much though. You know what I mean? I'm man, look, I'm set with not much. Give me a little shack on a river or something, and I'm cool. Man, and man, that's man. Look. I used to take the damn the damn tracks to school when I went to Choice. Shit, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's crazy how you know what I'm saying. Like when I was walking to Choice, it was we walked through where two sets of apartments are now, so you wouldn't even be able to get through there because the Dusty Whites came up, and then Tremonts, and then what was the man? That's right around the corner from where the Buddhist temple is at in my hood. Man, and it's crazy because I remember when they first moved into the house where they built a temple. Now it's a full big ass temple. What I mean, it's crazy. But they worked that area. They built that. They made that happen. And as a kid, watching, little by little, you know what I'm saying, one by one, you know what I'm saying, they knocked things out, got things done. It's crazy, and that's we need to get together. Man, that's the thing. I'm working on putting together a crew that maybe we can, what I'm saying, work together to build something. Cause it's time. I gotta start doing some collabs and spreading myself out a little bit. Just doing a little bit more because, like I said, I want a little bit more. I want to get to low in traffic, hit a switch, you know what I'm saying, hit a corner, get my clown on. Big ass church still on the top. Well, see, you talking about over there, you know what I'm saying? There's a spot right, you know what I'm saying, right off of Euclid and Home Avenue right there, the church right there. And behind that church was a spot where the jumps were. And that's where everybody went with their BMX bikes back in the day. That was called church trails. And you know what I'm saying? I remember, you know what I'm saying, it was Christmas Day. I was a little kid. My dad had got me my first bike. Pops got me a Huffy, a brand new Huffy BMX. Had the little styrofoam with the little Velcro wrap around it that said BMX on it. And man, you know what I'm saying? The first day I went out, everybody else, you know what I'm saying? Other people in the neighborhood had got this one dude had got a red line, another dude had got a GT. You know what I mean? I'm rolling on my Huffy. Man, I can keep up with anybody on this thing. I don't give a damn. Oh, we going to church trails. We going to church trails. All right, I'm behind the whoop. We ride all the way. We get there. You know what I'm saying? Now this is a place where they be having motorcycles doing these jumps and stuff, right? So now here the kids are doing these jumps. Now you gotta understand the situation. Now these kids, you know what I'm saying, we're the same age, but I'm about 2 years bigger in size than anybody, because I've always been a big guy. So I got this BMX and everybody's doing this one jump. So I come and I try and I hit this jump and I make it just to where the top wheel goes over the edge. And then the bike crank lands right on the lip. And I ended up going back down and not making it. So now I bit the bike. I'm banged up, rolled down, bike flipped over me. Now it's on the ground. So, all right, I got the wind knocked out of it. So finally I catch my breath and I pick the bike up. All right. So I get up, everybody laughing at me. I get on the bike, and when I sit on the bike, the sprocket touches the ground. Why? Because the metal bar that's connected to the sprocket that goes to the gooseneck is broken, clean off, not cracked, broken. Now, I can't even ride this, but I'm lazy because I'm kind of, I'm saying, that's how I got to be a big boy. So I sit on the bike and I walk it because that's all you can do. You can't pedal it. You can't put no weight on it. It's a few metal pieces holding it together, but that's it. And they're barely holding that together. So now it's a long walk sitting on this bike all the way home. Because the guys on their bikes, they didn't want to wait for me anymore. So they went on ahead. And they left my ass. So here I come, you know what I'm saying? I come walking up to the house on this brand new broken bike. And my dad is already, you know what I'm saying, a couple six packs into that case. He says, "Boy, what's wrong with that bike?" I throw it down. I say, "It broke." "What do you mean it broke?" I said, "Look, it broke." "How the hell you break that goddamn bike? You ungrateful little bastard." So Pop smacked me up that day. You know, smacked me up and told me, you know what I'm saying, he'll never buy me another bike again. So, I took him at his word. Yeah, I don't remember that one. I hated Huffy because of that's fucked up. OG Mike, I hated Huffy because of that shit, man. My dad whooped my ass because of that. And then was mad at me because, you know what I'm saying, he bought me a cheap ass bike. So then, it went on, you know what I'm saying? Now I was telling y'all, you know what I'm saying, I had stole a Diamondback. Easiest bike I ever stole because I overheard somebody talking about how they just stole it. And they were talking about how this is where they stashed it. I went out there and there go a bike. So I'm out of here because I got me a new bike. So I'm smashing out on the bike. I get back to the hood, and the homies, "Oh man, that motherfucker tight. Let me see it." So one of the homies grabbed a bike, like, "Man, that motherfucker tight. Let me see." I'm saying, he takes off up the street. So I'm standing there like, all right. You know what I'm saying? Hey, where'd he go? That motherfucker gone, man. So I stood there for like the hour and a half, waiting and waiting and waiting. That motherfucker never came back. And it wasn't even like Debo. You know what I mean? It wasn't none of that. It's not, "Oh, it's our bike. We're just going to keep it at my house." No, he took that. Man, hey, what was bad was when I was a kid, I had went up to LA, San Fernando Valley. I got family up there. So my uncle, I went up there for the summer. So working with my uncle, and I ran across an old Schwinn. So while I was up there, I had time with my uncle, and he's real hands on and he teaches. So, you know what I'm saying, he taught me and helped me. And we took this bike, this old Schwinn, stripped it all the way down, painted it up, hooked everything up, new bearings, you know what I'm saying, shined up all the, you know what I'm saying, sprocket, rims, because it's been sitting up for a while. Got some new blue snake belly tires, got the big, you know what I'm saying, ape hanger handlebars, had the blue banana seat. Yeah, you know what I'm saying, had the banana seat, and I was rolling. Man, that was, you know what I'm saying, I love that bike. Came back to Dago, had that motherfucker for like maybe 3 weeks. Somebody stole it. So that was it. If I wanted a bike, I was taking somebody else's. Man. Oh, the beach cruiser. Everybody had a beach cruiser, man. I had the blue one, the T Murray. Yes, sir. Man, I used to love that beach cruiser. But what was best though, you know what I'm saying? I remember, you know what I'm saying, we had got some of those soda machine keys, right? So one of my partners, he was working someplace, and they had a ring of keys for the soda machines there. So he stole the soda machine keys, and now he's like, "Hey man, we can open up all the soda machines." So we went walking from neighborhood to neighborhood, going from apartment complex to parks, anywhere where we could find a soda machine that we could open because it didn't work on all of them and we didn't have all the keys. So we can only open certain ones. But if we get to a place and there's five machines and we can open one of them, we're good. So yeah, I mean, we're just walking through the city. I mean, collecting. And they got to the point where I'm saying, motherfuckers' pants was falling down. We had to go to the stores, and we was, I'm saying, we was at the stores trying to turn in change and shit. Hey, you make do with what you got. They told us they wasn't taking all that shit. So then we found out, oh yeah, I'm saying, gotta go to the laundromat. And the laundromat wasn't no good because the laundromat will give you change, but they won't give you paper money. So now we got all this change, but we ain't got no paper money. Oh yeah, the change machine, yeah. Yeah, I knew a few ways to do that. But yeah, you know what I'm saying? Them was the good old days. Things was simpler, things was, I don't know. Nowadays everything is too much. It's I don't know. That's just my opinion. Man, look, I wish I could go back because we had so much fun back in the day. Now I caught the blues, you know what I'm saying, coming up, but we had fun doing it. Back in the days of dads and oh man, 20th Street, man, 41st Street, the dungeon. Oh man, 41st Street Park, man, the old park back in the day, Jackrabbit Hill. Man, that's crazy. But it's so much. The hole. Oh man, you know what I'm saying? Now the hole, when I first started banging, the hole was the set. And that was, you know what I'm saying, that was the heart. That's where everything was going down. That's where it started, 47th Street. And you know what I'm saying, back in the day, the hole used to be so cracking. And motherfuckers was down there slanging and everything. And then years later, then we found out, you know what I mean, that the police had the apartment on the hill and they got cameras looking down there watching us the whole time. We didn't find this stuff out till years later. And you know what I'm saying, a lot of people got caught up. It's sad, but you know what I mean, that's the way it goes. Man, the good old days. But yeah, now, you know what I'm saying, I was just recently able to spend time with some loved ones. It was it's always good, man, because like I said, I program myself. So I'm at work, and then I come home and I'm at the cage, you know. Now it's the weekend. I'm gonna go find me something to do, find me someplace to go put my fishing pole in the water, something. But I'm gonna get it in somehow. I'm not sure what's up for the weekend, so everything's up in the air, But I got a beautiful wife who's gonna help me figure out what we're gonna do. And then I'm saying there's always the grandbaby because that's man best part of the day. Anytime I can make the little princess smile is a good day. So all right, anybody got anything? Anybody got any questions? Going once. I can't hear you. Anybody got anything? Going twice. All right, y'all. I'll check you on my next one. Hey, go check out that code of ethics. It's only a short. It's only 60 seconds, less than a minute long. Roll easy, Snow Rock. You already know. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to keep it rolling. Just one time. Yeah, everybody, I'm saying, it's Friday night. I got a beautiful wife waiting on me. Peace. I'll see y'all next week, 9 o'clock.